So currently in a lot of places where weed is already legal, there's a big problem for a lot of people that want to start businesses in those places. And the big problem is that in a lot of these places, while it is legal and you are able to sell your marijuana, if you want to open up a dispensary or anything like that, but it's very hard to do so in a lot of these places. And the reason why that is because in a lot of these places, like let's take, California or even Canada right now, for example, in a lot of these places, dispensaries are very heavily taxed and they are also very regulated. And because of policies like that, it does hurt, a lot of people that, they want to put their foot into the game, if you want to say that. People that they're trying to put their first dispensary out, they're trying to start their first cannabis business, but it's very hard for them to do so because in order to abide with all these taxes that they have to follow and all these regulations, it makes it very expensive to, actually start a marijuana business. And as a result, there's a big discrepancy, between, small cannabis businesses and the big businesses that are getting into the cannabis market now, and they're dominating because for the most part they can afford much of the burdens that are put into the industry, which unfortunately a lot of these small players just can't. But another big problem that a lot of these cannabis companies are having now, on top of the many taxes and regulations that they have to abide by, and it's making it harder for them to start off, is a lot of these payment processing companies have policies that prevent them from selling hemp-driven CBD products. And to further explain the big problems that a lot of specifically these CBD companies have with these payment processing companies, I have this article from The Outline, and it states, here's why it's so hard for small businesses to sell CBD. Payment startups have policies against selling hemp-driven products, but larger retailers are allowed to slide while smaller ones get their service pulled. Now, if you want to talk about privilege, I can't think of a bigger example of, just flat out privilege than that. You're going to let the bigger players slide when it comes to this policy. But if you're someone who, is trying to get their foot out into the market, then, you're going to have a lot more problems than the big guys are going to have. So this article is coming from the 24th of May, which is today as I'm recording this. So the article starts off by saying, like many entrepreneurs with cannabis adjunct businesses, Maya Shaw's path to opening up her online shop started as a dissatisfied customer. I didn't really find a store or space I felt like a community I could really be a part of. Shaw's online store, Shaw BK, opened last April, is a fiercely mission and community driven and informed by her experience as a woman of color with items like handmade pipes and CBD tinctures from women and minority artisans. When Shaw first launched her shop using payment processor Strip, everything seemed fine. Many small businesses opt Strip thanks to its easy setup and pay-as-you-go fee structure, which deducts 2.7 to 2.9% plus 30 cents per credit card transaction. But after her 9 months, Strip informed her that she could no longer use its service because her store was a cannabis-affiliated business. She had 15 days to find another payment processor. Last October, before the Farm Bill, which legalized industrial hemp by removing it from the Controlled Substances Act, passed, Sephora started selling CBD products back then. Cultivating hemp was still technically federally illegal, and larger businesses tended to stay away from CBD. Verada von Feften. Man, I can't deal with all these foreign names. I'm sorry. The co-founder of cannabis magazine, Gossamer, said she started hearing that many independent CBD brands were banned from working with mainstream credit transaction processors. So how was Sephora selling items like Laura Jones CBD body lotion? This question extends to major retailers including DSW, Neiman Marcus, CVS, and Rite Aid, all of which announced this year that they are also getting into the business of selling CBD products. Luxury retailer Barney's launched a cannabis shop in Beverly Hills in partnership with a luxury weed brand, at which consumers will be able to order real weed, not just hemp-driven CBD products for delivery. But again, how? And that is a big question, how? Because of course, unless they're doing this all by cash, then they're going to need like some kind of, processor. specifically like a payment processor in order to, get all these transactions through. So, I mean, how are they doing it? I mean, apparently none of these payment processors are allowing companies to, use their services for, cannabis businesses. How are they doing it? Credit card processing is perhaps the biggest Achilles heel for CBD companies, Lex Pilger, the director of education for CBD processor CV Sciences, told me over email. Overly cautious credit card processors are hamstringing the industry over their own cowardice. The cannabis scene has long been dominated by a certain underground stoner bro aesthetic. Growers and shop owners were, and still are, overwhelmingly male, but more women are entering the industry thanks to legalization efforts across the U.S. Cannabis is undergoing a rebranding of sorts, as producers and marketers move away from stoner stigma and seek to become the Apple Store of weed, or the Herms of marijuana. For hemp-driven CBD products which contain trace amounts of THC and therefore do not produce a stone feeling, producers have long operated in a legal gray area. The 2014 Farm Bill allowed states to create hemp pilot and research programs which help spur the growth of CBD businesses across the country. But many of these businesses were not operating under state hemp programs. The DEA wasn't cracking down on the CBD industry or consumers, and the wide availability of the products lent a sort of legitimacy to the industry. But there were still stories of people getting arrested and stores getting raided by local law enforcement who viewed hemp as still definitely illegal. With the passage of the Farm Bill last December, it finally seemed that CBD would be legal. That's what it definitely might seem, but still, there's still a lot of discrepancies when it comes to how the laws are right now. So the problem is, of course, the FDA, they don't know how they're going to evaluate, CBD, especially, CBD that's coming from marijuana, but also CBD that's coming from, hemp, so they're trying to find ways of how they're going to, regulate it because, a lot of, products that are out right now, they're not technically, FDA evaluated, so because of that, there's still a lot of discrepancies, within, the laws currently. So this is why they sort of mentioned that CBD is kind of in a gray area, because in a lot of ways it is. So even though, especially CBD that's driven from hemp, even though this stuff is completely legal, which, by the way, if you want some hemp CBD, which I highly recommend you go get yourself some, I will have a link to that in the description down below, where there is a long list of CBD products that you can get. But anyhow, let me stop promoting. There is still technically a gray area because although federally it is legal now, CBD driven from hemp, there's still definitely some state laws that that they are pretty complicated. I mean, we saw just a couple weeks ago where you had the Florida lady that went to Disney World. She just had some CBD oil with her because God forbid you need something to help out with your arthritis, and she got arrested because she did the really unholy thing of bringing CBD to an amusement park, which she didn't even technically bring it in because they stopped her in front of the gates basically, so she didn't bring it in. But stories like that still show that there's still plenty of gray areas when it comes to CBD, which it might still be the case for a little while until a lot of these laws get changed. So we'll still have to continue looking into it more. Cannabis companies were thrilled. We will be able to access this raw material industrial hemp across state lines, said Nancy Whiteman, CEO of cannabis edible company Buena Brands, in a statement after the bill's passage. Federally regulated institutions, including banks and credit card companies, will now be able to freely conduct businesses with companies involved in the hemp product industry, went a press release from Denver-based cannabis company Dixie Brands. But unfortunately for small businesses like Shaw BK, payment processors like Stripe still seem to prohibit the use of their services for sales of hemp-driven CBD, even while being used by larger retailers like Target and Amazon, which still sell hemp products. Target will begin stocking hemp products from Smith's Naturals this fall. SHRIP did not respond to multiple requests to clarify its policy on CBD and hemp products. Which is this is very, very, very telling. They can't even come up clean when it comes to how they have their policy when it comes to CBD and hemp products. SHRIP's terms of service lists cannabis dispensaries and related businesses as restricted businesses with no special exemption for hemp-driven CBD. The payment processor Square also emphasizes federal law when explaining that it does not serve marijuana product retailers because such substances are not currently legal at the federal level. Payment processors appear to have no qualms about rejecting small independent businesses, while major chains that have started to get into CBD products like DSW or Neiman Marcus have been able to elude such policies. Now I know a lot of days, people throw, the term privilege, like it basically means nothing. This guy has privilege, this group has privilege or whatever. But this example is a very clear example of privilege, if you want to use that word. I mean, what would you call it if you have someone that wants to start up a small dispensary or a small CBD shop and they can't do it, or they can do it, but they have a lot of difficulties, with payment processors because they don't want to associate themselves with small CBD companies. But these same payment processing companies are okay with working with large corporations and big businesses that want to get into this market. What would you call that? I mean, let's keep it real. This is a clear example of privilege, okay? It just shows that, if you're someone who, has an entrepreneur spirit and you want to, step into, a new emerging market, which is, of course, CBD is cannabis, and you have so many difficulties, you have so many burdens that, a lot of these governments already put, in regards to taxation, and a lot of these regulations. But not only that, you also have, these private payment processing companies that also, put a big burden on these small businesses because, hey, apparently we don't want to associate with you, okay? We don't mess with CBD companies. But as long as you are a giant, corporation, then of course we're okay with that. I mean, it does show a decent bit of hypocrisy, from these companies, these payment processing companies, I should say. But I do think that examples like this does show that a lot of these big corporations, whether you want to look at like retailers, like Target or Walmart, or the biggest online retailer, which is Amazon, or if you want to look at which we're talking about right now, these payment processing companies like like Square or SHRIP, they really don't care much about the little guy. They don't care a whole lot about small businesses. They just want just chew up the market. They want to throw everyone out of business while they take up the entire market for themselves. That is at the end of the day what they want. I mean, that's what Walmart did back in the day, like throwing out all of these small mom and pop shops, and we're seeing that right now. I mean, right before our eyes when it comes to CBD. I mean, in a lot of ways, CBD is one of the biggest opportunities that are out right now. Like, if you're someone who is passionate about, like CBD, like you really like, the benefits that it gives you, and, let's say you have an entrepreneur spirit, you want to start off a business like this, there's going to be so many burdens for you, which, these are burdens that, they really just shouldn't, be around, But the best thing that I think that we could hope for is, we just point out, the hypocrisy that these payment processing companies have, towards small business. Like, the best thing that we could probably do is just point out to them that, like, hey, like, you guys are, real hypocrites. You're not allowing small CBD shops to get their foot into, the game, like using your payment processors, but you're going to allow basically, these giant oligarchic corporations to, use your services. Like, why the discrepancy? And I guess pointing stuff like that and just letting them know, like, hey, like this double standard really needs to end, hopefully. I mean, it's already very hard for a lot of small CBD companies to get their foot in the ground, and this is just another burden that really shouldn't be there. And this article does continue on for a decent bit, but I just want to get the main points out for this article. So if you're someone who wants to read the rest of this article, I will have a link to it down below so you can read this whole thing for yourself. And what do you think of all this news? Go ahead and let your voice be heard, and go ahead and put a comment down below. Let me know what you think of this news. And that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for this video. If you want to go ahead and subscribe to me, so that way you get all my new videos when they come out, there should be a button right here so you can do that. Or if you want to watch my most recent video, there will also be a button to that right here. Thank you all again so much for watching, and until the next one, I hope all of you have a good rest of the day. Take care. Peace.